Hi guys, today we're going to go ahead and set up the new fourth axis from YoraHome. You should have received the chuck style rotary, we call the fourth axis, for the CNC machines, for the mandrel, and it's for the 3018 and also for the 6550 laser. You should have received the end pin here and then 2 wrenches to tighten it up. And this basically is to create circular projects like this, the skulls, my wonderful paint job, and then the chest piece, things like that. There's a bunch of other things, table legs, whatever you want to do, lots of different things to a toothpick. So what we're going to do is walk you through setting this up, and we're going to set it up on the mandrel, and then we will go ahead and set it up for the 6550 using light burn. When you set this up for the mandrel, it's pretty much the same process for the 3018 actually and the silverback for the silverback rotary. So we will get started and show you how to set this up. So we're going to go ahead and do this in Easel. I chose Easel because I know most people probably have Easel. It's free and that's what we recommend. It can be done in Candle, Carve, UGS, whatever you choose. All we're really going to do is we're going to change the steps of the motor. We're going to change some of the Gerbil settings. We're going to change the steps of the motor until the rotary spins one perfect complete turn. For like if we tell it to move 3 inches, it makes one, because we have a 3-inch circumference material, then it will do one full turn. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to do is, again, like I had said, we're going to make this turn one full complete turn is what we want. So if this, which it is, 1.15 inches, and then we tell this to move 1.15 inches, turn 1.15 inches, it has to be start and stop exact same point. So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing we need to do is put a piece of tape here and a piece of tape on the moving chuck so that we can line them up. I just have regular blue tape. You can use anything, although mine doesn't want to come off now. Okay. So I'm going to put a piece of tape right here. Yeah. And then I'm going to put a piece, I'm actually going to mark this one first. Probably better to mark it before you rip it because it's going to be harder to mark it while you have it on there. And I'm actually going to turn this, and I'm going to put this here, pretty much straight like that, as you can see here. And then I'm going to put this mark dead across from it. So what we're going to do is when we put a piece of material in here that is 1 inch, and we tell this to turn 1 inch, we want this to rotate and come back exactly there, and that's what we're going to accomplish. Okay, so how we do that is basically when you get many of these rotaries, whether they're for tumblers or whatever they're for, usually the manufacturer gives you a setting to put in for how many steps per millimeter and so forth, and it's a little bit different with a fourth axis because dependent on the material you have, it still should do the same rotation if you set it up to, let's say, the chuck, and let's say the gear on the chuck is I don't know, 2 inches, or 2 inches diameter. Then what would happen is you can set that up. But if you go into your 3D software and you say, okay, I have a 1 inch piece of a dowel rod and I want to carve on that, well, when you put that in, your settings are not going to match because it's going to turn it for a 1 inch device or 1 inch material instead of a 2 inch material, and so that's why we have to do what we have to do. So if you have a different material, that's why you have to kind of fine tune it for each one that you have. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you need to do is determine what you want to carve and which way you want it. Now I have this along my x-axis because I want it to rotate here, and then I want the bed to go in and out, so that this is just going to ride over and cut up and down. If you turn it sideways, you could do that as well. It doesn't really matter, but you just won't get as much. I mean, you only have so much distance. You have a little bit more on the Y, so I'm hooking this to my X. Alright, so to hook this up, make sure your box is turned off. And I'm going to move my fancy dancy little holder here. And I'm actually going to put it up here for right now, I guess, or over here. Basically, make sure the power is turned off of your box for sure. And what you're going to do is, you can unplug your spindle to give you a little more room, is we're basically going to unplug the X motor here. And we're going to simply plug in this cable, because I'm using the X axis here. If it was the Y, you would do the Y, but I'm going to do the X right there. And then don't forget to plug your spindle back in, and then spin it back around. Let me hook this back there again, plug it back in, and turn it back on. And that should be, make sure you didn't hit your stop button, and plug your USB back in, make sure you're all connected back up again, you're good to go. But that's all you do. You just plug this into whatever access that you're using. I'm using the X, so that's what we plug it in there. And that's it, pretty simple. Okay, now that we have it connected, what we want to do is turn the box on, which I've already done, and make sure it's on rather. And then you're going to come into Easel, and you're going to make sure that it's connected. First and foremost, let's make sure this is green at the top right. Click on the little jog square. You probably will have to click unlock the first time. Click unlock. And then we're just going to rotate the X left and right, and that's what we want to make sure that moves. Just moving it a couple times. As you can see, it's turning fine, and that's what we want. I'm going to go ahead and zoom you in a little bit. So you can see what we're doing better. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go up to Machine, and then General Settings, and then Machine Inspector, and I'm going to show you here. So the $100 is your X-axis. The $101 is your Y-axis. So in this case, we're going to change the X-axis, which is 100. And it's really simple to do. Right up here in the console, you just put $100 equals and then your new value. Now the manufacturer recommends 80 as the value. So the default for this would be 80. I guess that would be the gear inside. I'm not sure, but as you're going to see, it's not going to work for what we're going to do. But I just want to show you roughly when we change it to 80, the difference that it's going to be. So let's just say $80 or $100 equals 80, and then hit enter. And you want to make sure it says OK, that it took it. So then you can click away, and then let's open up the jog. Now, the material I have in here, we'll switch back to millimeter here then. This is 1.15 inches, but we'll switch over to millimeter now, and it is 28 point. Actually, I could get away with 28.40. 28 point. Jeez. 28.36. I'm going to go with. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with 28.38. 28.38 millimeters. Let me lock that in. And the circumference, now I have a little cheat program here that tells me, so my diameter is 28.38. Let me triple check that. Whoops, 0.380. Hit tab. So my circumference is 89 millimeters, 89.158. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell this to rotate that much. So I'm going to tell it to rotate 89 millimeters, and technically it should rotate all the way around, and that line should line right back up. Now remember, we have this setting at the $ setting, 100, the steps per millimeter at 80, which is going to be wrong, but I want to show you the difference here. It's just so you have a better understanding of it. So I'm going to click the X plus. Oh, sorry. Let me click that back. I'm going to come here to the custom X and Y, and we're going to put in 89.158. I'm going to hit tab, and then I'm going to hit the X plus. And we're looking for complete rotation. As you can see, it made it all the way to here. So obviously 80 is too short. So I have actually tried doing the measurement like they say, you know, oh, just measure the distance from here to here and add that to it. And really, honestly, depending on the material that you have, it's different every time. So I'm just going to show you quickly how to do this, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to add. So $80 is wrong. So I'm going to tell this to go back. Before I do anything, I'll tell it to go back, just so it lines back up again and we don't got to keep moving it. There we go. Perfect. Now I'm going to go to Machine, General Settings, and I'm going to go to Machine Inspector. And I'm going to change 100 here, so we have $100 equals. I'm going to change it to 105. Actually, I'm going to change it to 100. And then I'm going to click away. Now, I'm not really sure what command I can send this to make that active now, but what you have to do is come here, and then I would click on, actually, you could just leave it 1, doesn't matter. Click X one time forward, and then backward. And just to make sure that, you know, it still has the, it has to accept that new setting, and I have to move it sometimes to make it do that for whatever reason. You'll see sometimes it'll just spin. But anyway, come back into Custom Y, and I'm actually going to make this bigger for you over here so that you can see. I want to make sure that you're able to see all that too. Yeah, you're so good. You can see all that. So here we're going to put in the custom. I'm going to say 89.158. Hit tab, and now I'm going to tell X plus again. So much closer. As you can see it now. I'm actually going to zoom you in a little more just so you can keep up with me here. Whoops. A little more. So what my goal is pretty much to keep adjusting that number until it gets to that mark. That's pretty much all we're going to do, and it's based on the dowel rod that I have in there, which is 28.38 millimeters diameter, which is an 89 millimeter circumference. And just so you know, on my screen here, if you can see this, this is pretty much the thing here. We measured the diameter, and then this program here automatically calculated the circumference of it. The radius is pretty much half of it, whatever it would be. But and so the machine needs to know the circumference of it, because when you do the 3D, it actually has what's called a 2D layout, which is the size of the actual circumference, and then it wraps it. So the more you get into it, the more you understand that. But for now, I just want you to know how to set this up. So I'm going to go ahead and click it back again, so it'll hopefully go back to the same position. And it did. And now I'm going to go to Machine, General Settings, Machine Inspector. I'm just going to scroll down and make sure. So 100 is 100. I'm going to change it to, I'm just going to say 105. It's going to bring me closer. So $100 equals 105. Hit enter. It did it. It took it okay. Click away, click jog. Now the first time, just leave it on 1, just click the X forward one time, and then click back, because it has to accept that. Now for some reason it doesn't. You may see it go fast one way or further or whatever, and then click back. That's all fine, no big deal. Just if you have to, if for some reason it does that, like this, you can move it with the machine or with the thing, or you can just move it out by hand. I don't recommend doing that a lot because you don't want to keep doing that to the motor, but if you have to do 1 or 2 notches, that's fine. And then, same exact thing, we're going to just simply put in here, whoops, the custom is 89.158. Hit tab, and then I'm going to hit plus again, X plus. Fingers crossed. So close. So close. I'm at 105, and that is, alright, I'm going to click back. I'm going to go, what do you think, 107? It's not 106. General settings, machine inspector, really simple. $100 equals 107. Let's try that. Make sure that it took it. Click away, click here, click forward one time, and then back. Just make sure it takes it. Come into X here and go 89.158, tab, and I'm going to X plus. See where that gets me. I want to see because it's going to be really close probably. That actually looks pretty dead on, doesn't it? What was that you said? I think so too. Alright, I'm going to, that looks pretty darn close. I'm going to click backwards now and I'm going to eye it up. Make sure it's very, very detailed. It's pretty perfect. It's pretty good, actually. Let me see here. I'm going to just, I actually think it's off just ever so slightly. And I'll show you, it's kind of important. I'm going to go forward again. Ready? And I'll show you why it's important, but it is off just a tad. I don't know if you could see that. So I'm actually going to go 107.5. Oh, here, let me have it come back first. Let me put it back first. Make sure you, oh shoot. Make sure you put it back in the same position if you can. 89.158, if you can't, you can't, whatever. Just as long as you get it straight. Okay, perfect. So I'm actually going to change this now to 107.5. I'm at 107. So 100 equals 107.5. You could do 0.25, whatever you want to do, dial it in. But I'll show you something here in a second. So I'm going to come back, click plus a little bit, come back a little bit, and now I'm going to change it again. 89.158, tab. Yeah, I like that better. I like that much better. So I'm going to tell it to go back, make sure it goes back. Okay, so I like that. So pretty much now you have it dialed in to, let me come back here a little bit. Hold on a second. We now have the motor settings set to the stepper settings pretty much to the size of the material, the dowel that I have inside of here. So it's a 89 millimeter material or circumference material, and that pretty much, you know, is set by the radius. The program told me what it was. We did it. We set it up. And the reason why that's important now is because when we do our 3D designs, you have to tell the 3D design the size of material, and the size of material is actually your circumference because you set it up in 2D. And then what it does is it actually wraps that around the size of the dowel. So anyway, the reason why this is kind of really important is, I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to try and get it so this will, you can see it. You see that little notch? Let me find it here. There's a little notch right there. So mine was off just a little bit. You could see that. And what it did was it started going all the way around, and I noticed it, and I'm like, darn. So you have to stop and maybe increase it. So hypothetically, let's say you did this right here, and you're going, oh, it's off a little bit. It needs a little bit more. So I would go back, start over, and change your motor settings. You don't have to change nothing in your design. Just go into the $100 and change your motor setting. So in this case, we had 107.5. I would maybe make it 108. And then that should cover that little distance there. For something like this, as you can see, it's not that major. You can sand it, not a big deal, whatever. Something like this, on the other hand, you don't want that mark or spacing. It needs to be pretty perfect. You need to be dead on, because if you're not, as you can see, my seam was right. I can actually see my seam here. If it's not perfect, then you know, it'll show up wherever, you know, like it'll show up like that, and it could show up a blemish on here or the face or whatever. Now, one thing I like to do is when you do your design, have your design start and stop the end of it on a flat surface like this, not something very detailed like this. And that's important too, because if it's something here like this, you could just sand that down, no big deal. But you can't really sand stuff down in here. So that's pretty much how you set it up, and that's where we have the this is dialed in. Now, I would say what you could do if you want to be 100% sure. I mean, I would imagine that's good. You can turn your mandrel over. Let me back up a little more. You can have this. You just rotate this over now. This motor should be disengaged because you have it connected to here. I'm going to go ahead and move my bed forward. Move this down a little bit. Whoops. Once you get it unlocked, what I was doing was just going down just up to the wood, not actually touching the wood though. And then you can actually put a mark there. I already did one, as you can see. Not quite where it wants to be, but and then rotate it again if that makes you feel better that it's going to be. Just for the heck of it, let's see, 89.158 tab, and then rotate it. So it may look a little cumbersome to do, but it's really not that bad. So it actually, if I look at that correctly, it almost looks a little shy of what it should be. Let me come back here. See, this gives me a little more detail now, and you can use a thinner pencil. Yeah, that actually came over. No, that's actually pretty good. That's right. That's right where it was. But it may look a little cumbersome, but it's really important that you get this dialed in. Let me see if you can see that mark there. Because, you know, it's going to matter when you're trying to do your cut. And like I said, this applies to even the 3018. It's the same thing. It's the same setting. It's a $100. Pretty much all that's the same, except on the 6550 laser. It's a bit different and a lot easier because the light burn takes all the math out of it, and you don't have to change this stuff. But we will get to that after this one. So I hope that helps setting this up and get you carving. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Jungle.